Hey all, Hibber here. Welcome back to the channel, and today I will tell you 5 things I wish that I knew before I went out and purchased a Nintendo Switch. So if you enjoy the content, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Every subscriber helps, and of course also like and share the video if you enjoy it. So the Switch may be pushing around 7 years in age, but that doesn't mean that the steam has gone out of the sales. We're actually approaching 150 million sold Switches throughout its lifetime. So if you are thinking of jumping on the Switch train, which I think you should, it is probably the best console I own, and I own all of them. Then here is 5 things you should know before you buy a Nintendo Switch. Alright, so the first thing you need to know when purchasing a Switch is the fact that the games can come either on cartridge, or you can also purchase them from the Switch store within the Switch. Now what you need to know is that the store on the Switch is extremely laggy. It has been this day since, well, day one, and Nintendo hasn't done anything to solve this issue for the 7 years I've had my Switch. So as you can see here, like the delay in moving between menu points is one thing, very annoying, and it gets even worse when you are actually browsing through games because it takes a long time to actually load the pack shots and or whatever it is that goes on here, and it gets very frustrating very quickly. Now this gets even worse if you have a game in the background still running and you're just checking the store out. So it can very quickly become very frustrating. Luckily there's a way around this, and it simply just means that take your Nintendo account, log in through your browser on your computer or your iPad or whatever, and then browse the store there, purchase the games there, and they will automatically download to your Switch. It doesn't mean that the store is fixed on the Switch, and sometimes it is your only option, right? But it is something to be aware of, that it is very frustrating to use. Alright, the second thing you need to know is that the Nintendo Switch is a portable handheld console and also a stationary console, all in one. Now this hybrid approach has necessitated some less than ideal changes to the controllers and the ergonomics in general, and this is particularly true when you play the Switch in handheld mode or tabletop mode. So even playing using the comfort grip isn't actually very comfortable, and if you play the Switch a lot from your couch, you have it docked, you can get around this whole problem by buying the Pro controller. Now, instead, if you want to play your Switch a lot on the go, which a lot of people want to do because it is a portable console, then the ergonomics really come knocking on your door, and you'd be very well off buying a grip like the one showing here, or you could go all the way and buy completely new Joy-Cons on the side and get some full-size ones, and trust me, it will make your experience a lot better, and you will cramp up a lot less when you're using your Switch on the go. Just with that in mind, I would also be very careful of buying the Switch Lite if you are an adult, because it is simply even smaller than the original Switch or the OLED. So just keep that in mind. This is mainly for kids, in my opinion. Alright, next up, unless you buy all your games on cartridges, you're going to download at least a few games off the internet. And games are big, at least some of them are. And a game that's more than 10 gigabyte is not unusual on the Switch anymore. And the maximum internal memory you can get is 64 gigabyte. Now, of course, you can juggle your games using the built-in tiny memory of either 32 gigabytes or 64 gigabytes, but it is a lot of work, and most people will buy an external SD card to expand the memory of their Switch. So the third thing on my list here is, once you go out and purchase an SD memory card, purchase a big one. Now most people are tempted to buy either 64 or 128 gigabytes, and in my opinion that's not enough, and the premium you pay to buy, for example, a 256 gigabyte instead is so small that the 256 really is the minimum you should buy for your Switch. Now, because it's also a pain to switch your SD card later on, I would say that 512 gigabytes would be the sweet spot. It's a little bit more expensive, but it means that you are unlikely to need space ever again. And going for a 1 terabyte is also a possibility, especially if you want to be prepared for Switch 2, because I'm assuming the games will be much larger on that console, and with a 1 terabyte card, you are ready, or at least as ready as you can be, right? All right, at number 4, I suggest that you go out and you purchase a second dock for your Switch. Now, of course, this only makes sense if you tend to move your Switch from TV to TV, like if the kids have a TV in their room and you want to use it sometimes on your TV. Having a separate dock, or 2 distinct docks, is much easier than having to disconnect and reconnect all the cables every time you want to move your Switch around. And of course, buying a dock also means that you could decide to buy a second Switch instead that obviously comes with a dock. That way you get a second console and a dock and also a second controller. So it can actually save you a bit of money if you also want a second controller, for example. Now, personally, I bought a second Switch, and that means I also got a second dock, which I'm using in my office, and then I have the primary dock at my primary TV. And it may sound like something that's really not that necessary, but trust me, in the long run, you're going to be very, very happy that you have more than just one dock. All right, next up, something I wish I knew from the beginning is the fact that you can actually zoom your Switch screen in by going into the settings and system and turning zoom on. After doing this, you are able to double click the home button and zoom in on the display and move around to actually read what it says. Now, most games are readable once you're playing in handheld mode, but some are lacking the optimization, and it can be a little bit tough to read what's actually on screen, particularly in games like Divinity Original Sin and Civilization. So the zoom feature is really handy, and there's really no reason not to turn it on. Alright, so that was the 5 things that I wish I knew before I bought a Nintendo Switch. And I'd say if you just go with one of these options here, I would say the most important one is to buy a large SD card. Because you really cannot get an SD card big enough. And these days they are quite cheap. And you will definitely thank me down the road once you have 100, 200, 300 games purchased on the Switch store. So I hope you enjoyed this video here. Let me know in the comments what you think. Don't forget to subscribe and also like and share.